I'd never felt so helpless in my life. There I was, sprawled out in a hospital bed, tubes in my arm and monitors beeping around me like some weird techno lullaby. The surgery had been rough. Emergency abdominal operation. They said it was close. Too close. I remember the surgeon's voice, calm but serious. Another 12 hours and it might have been too late. I nodded, but inside, I was reeling. They moved me to recovery after a couple days in ICU. Pain was constant, dull in some spots and sharp in others, but manageable. What wasn't manageable was the silence from my wife, Megan. She came the first day, stayed an hour, maybe two. She was distracted, phone in hand, barely making eye contact. She gave me that strange smile people wear when they're somewhere they don't want to be. Told me work was crazy, and she'd be back the next day. She didn't come back the next day, or the one after. The nurses noticed, I think. One of them, sweet lady named Angela, would stay an extra minute or two, fluffing my pillows, asking about pain levels, chatting about the weather. I appreciated her, even though I could see in her eyes she felt sorry for me. She'd glance at the empty chair next to my bed like it was a metaphor she didn't have the heart to name. The hospital has a funny way of making you reflect. Nothing else to do but think. You think about your regrets, your childhood, the last conversation you had with your dad before he passed. You even think about dumb stuff, like how you never got around to replacing that leaky faucet in the kitchen. But mostly, I thought about Megan, and the way she hadn't really looked at me in months. Not since before the surgery, not even before I got sick. We'd been off for a while, but I chalked it up to the usual marriage wear and tear. We were 5 years in, solid years, I thought. Maybe not always exciting, but steady, reliable, like me. But the thing about lying flat on your back for days is that it makes you see things you don't want to see. And I saw it then. The way she'd been distant, the excuses, the late-night texts she always tilted her phone to hide. The unexplained nights out with the girls, except I knew her friends, and they didn't go out that often. I started noticing timelines that didn't add up. Like the weekend she went to her mother's and came back with perfume that wasn't hers and a tan line from a bathing suit I'd never seen. I asked back then, she laughed it off. Said I was overthinking. I let it go. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid, insecure husband. But in that hospital bed, unable to get up, unable to do anything but replay every lie she ever told me. I knew. On day 4, she finally showed up. It was almost evening. She came in smelling like wine and guilt, kissed me on the forehead like a nurse would a patient, and sat down heavily in the chair. "I've been busy," she said, not meeting my eyes. I nodded. "Yeah." Long silence. Then she shifted uncomfortably and said, "How are you feeling?" "Like I got stabbed by life," I said. I tried to keep it light. Humor had always been my armor. She gave a weak smile, but her eyes darted to the door like she was hoping someone would come and rescue her. She didn't stay long. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from pain. From clarity. She wasn't in it anymore. Hadn't been for a while. And whatever she was busy doing, it sure as hell wasn't just working late. The real blow came from a friend. Danny, one of my oldest buddies, dropped by the next morning. Brought me a decent coffee and that smirk he always wears when he's got bad news he doesn't want to say out loud. "She been here much?" he asked after we caught up. I shook my head. He nodded slowly. "I didn't want to tell you this, man, but I think you should know." My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming before he said it. She's been seen with someone. A guy. Tall, dark jacket. Always wears a hat. People have seen them at the Clover, the jazz bar off Main. That bar. The one she told me she hated because it was too noisy. I didn't say anything. I just looked out the window, the 4-needle pulling slightly as I shifted. Danny didn't press. Just sat with me a while, which somehow meant more than any words could have. When he left, he clapped my shoulder and said, "Whatever you decide, you don't have to go through it alone." I nodded, but I already knew. I was alone. At least in the marriage. The rest of my hospital stay was a blur. Nurses came and went. Vitals were taken. Fluids were changed. Pain meds dispensed like clockwork. Megan didn't come back. When they discharged me a week later, I didn't ask for her to pick me up. I called a rideshare and made my way home, every bump in the road echoing in my sore ribs. I remember stepping inside the house and feeling nothing. Not relief. Not warmth. Just this cold stillness, like the place knew I didn't belong there anymore. Her shoes were by the door. A wine glass on the table. A jacket I didn't recognize tossed on the couch. And then, the final confirmation. I walked into our bedroom and smelled cologne that wasn't mine. The bedsheets had been changed, but not well. I could still see the faint crease of where two bodies had laid. I stood there for a long time, not saying a word, just breathing it in, like you breathe in smoke before the fire. That was the moment the last thread snapped. Not from rage. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just done. Done pretending. Done hoping. Done lying to myself. She came home that night around 10 p.m., surprised to see me. I'll never forget the look on her face. Part guilt, part irritation, part, oh crap, he's home. I didn't know they were letting you out today, she said, trying to sound casual. I just stared at her. She fumbled with her keys, dropped her bag by the counter, started rambling about how work had been crazy and she'd just stopped by a friend's. Her voice was too high, her smile too forced. I didn't say anything. I just turned, walked to the guest room, and shut the door behind me. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid there staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell we got here. Wondering when love turned into convenience, when comfort turned into betrayal. And I wondered if it had always been this way, and I just refused to see it. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But I didn't. Not then. Because something inside me had shifted. And it wasn't just the stitches in my side. It was the realization that I wasn't going to fight for someone who gave up the moment I needed her most. I gave it 3 days. Not to forgive, not to forget, just to make sure I was strong enough to carry my own bags. The doctor had warned me. No lifting, no exertion, no stress if I could avoid it. I figured, well, 1 out of 3 ain't bad. Megan tried. Or maybe she just pretended to. She made dinner once, microwaved leftovers another night, and slept on the far edge of the bed like I was contagious. She kept up the charade for a while, asking how I felt, if I needed anything. But we both knew it was just noise to fill the space where love used to be. I didn't ask about the other man. Didn't bring up the cologne, or the bar, or the lies. I didn't have to. Her guilt filled the room like a humid fog. Thick, sour, and impossible to ignore. The morning of the 4th day, I packed a bag. She was in the shower. I moved slow, careful not to pull my stitches, folding only what I needed. Jeans, a couple of shirts, the shaving kit my brother gave me last Christmas. I left my wedding band on the bathroom counter, right where she'd see it when the steam cleared. By the time she came out, towel around her hair, I was sitting in the living room with my duffel by the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice tight. I looked at her, really looked. The face I once knew like the back of my hand. Every freckle, every mood, every unspoken thought, now felt like a stranger's. "I'm going to my brother's," I said. For a while. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. Her eyes darted to the bag, then to the ring on the counter behind her. And I saw it, that flicker of panic. That quiet, creeping dread. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said softly. I didn't answer. I was lonely, and you were always gone. Not just physically, emotionally too. Still, I said nothing, because I'd heard this line before. In books, in movies, in stories friends told me over drinks. It's always the same script. I was lonely. You were distant. I didn't mean to. As if cheating was some sort of spontaneous combustion. Something that just happens when you light enough disappointment and match it with unmet expectations. "I'm not blaming you," she added quickly. "It was my fault. But I want to fix this." I looked down at the floor, then back at her. I was in a hospital bed, Megan. She flinched. I was fighting for my life, and you were entertaining someone else. Do you get that? Do you understand what that does to a person? Tears welled in her eyes. But I wasn't looking for an apology. I wasn't even angry anymore. "I just need space," I said. "To think. To breathe." She nodded slowly, her face crumpling in a way that almost made me pause. But I didn't. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out the door. My brother's guest room was small and smelled faintly of gym socks, but it felt like a sanctuary. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer, turned on the game, and let me sit in silence. That first night, I slept for 8 hours straight. First time in weeks. Over the next few days, I tried to piece together the wreckage. I called my doctor, checked in about my recovery. I updated HR at work. And I saw a therapist. Best decision I made. I didn't talk much at first. Just stared at the floor while she asked me gentle questions about pain, physical and otherwise. Eventually, it spilled out. The surgery, the silence, the betrayal, the ache that sat right behind my ribcage. "You're grieving," she said one day. I raised an eyebrow. "Grieving what?" the life you thought you had. That landed like a stone in my chest. Because she was right. I was grieving a version of Megan that probably hadn't existed for a long time. I was mourning the illusion, the picture-perfect marriage I kept trying to paint over the cracks. Weeks passed. I started walking again. Short distances at first, then around the block, then farther. Every step reminded me that I was healing, not just physically, but in ways I hadn't realized I needed to. Megan called a few times. I didn't pick up. She texted too. The last one just said, "I miss you." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Because here's the thing about betrayal, it rewrites everything. Even the good memories start to feel like fiction. Eventually, I filed the paperwork. Quietly. No drama. Just a clean line drawn under a story that had already ended. Megan didn't contest it. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to fight for. When the papers came through, I took a drive up north. Just me and the road. No destination, just a full tank and an open sky. I pulled over somewhere near the coast, walked down to the water, and sat on a bench overlooking the waves. That's when I finally cried. Not because I missed her. Not even because I was angry. But because I'd made it through. Because I was still here. Still breathing. Still standing. I wasn't the same man who went into that hospital weeks ago. That man believed love could fix anything. That man thought loyalty guaranteed reciprocation. This man? He knew better. He knew that sometimes, the person you trust the most will leave you bleeding, metaphorically or otherwise, while they chase something shinier. And when they do, it's not your job to make sense of it. It's your job to survive it. So that's what I did. And I'm still doing it. One step, one breath, one honest day at a time.